Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Ankerstar Wealth Morning Show. I'm your host, Steve Ankerstar. Allison has the day off. Today, we're going to be talking about three things. The Apple Pay Later program that was just released actually yesterday evening. We're going to talk about Lululemon's earnings. They crushed it, and they're only one of the few that are out there. So we'll talk about why that is. And lastly, we'll talk about the IRS Form 5498, which is the form that, I'm not surprised you don't have it memorized, but is the form that captures each year not only what you contributed to your IRAs, but what the end of the fair market value is at the end of the year. That sort of thing. So that's what we're going to discuss today. Before we begin, as reminders, the financial education presentation should not be construed as personal financial advice. Full disclaimer information is available at ankerstarwealth.com. Now let's get started. First of all, we're going to talk about the Apple Pay Later program. Now, I do have a little mixed feelings about this. So we'll talk personal first, and then we'll talk about what it means for the stock. So personally, I'm not super excited about these like built-in layaway plans. If you remember, like way back in the day, I know I'm old, but if you remember, you had like you bought a mattress or furniture, they would give you a layaway plan. Like you could pay for it, over four monthly installments or four installments or 12 monthly installments or 3 years or whatever. Well, this allows pretty much any purchase to spread it out over the next 6 weeks. So it's kind of from a personal finance perspective, and as a father of two young individuals figuring life out, right, I'm kind of thinking that, if you can't afford to charge it today and pay it off, when the credit card bill comes through, and you think that, well, I can pay it off over equal installments over the course of 6 weeks. I mean, that's cutting a fine line there, right? I mean, on whether you can really afford it or not. So I hope that this isn't a enabler, if you will, or a gateway drug, if you will, to worse financial problems for folks out there. So I don't know. I mean, I don't. I get it. Demographically, I'm not at the point where I'm having to kind of sweat this stuff anymore, and I know that millions of people are. So I get that. But I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. We shall see. But that's my personal feelings on what we'll do for the stock. Well, what it's going to do is going to take away, there's other firms out there that specialize in this, and I think it's going to knock them out of the game. So I don't know if Apple's doing this to make money or if it's doing it to knock other competitors out of the way. We shall see. But again, $50 to $1,000. The stock market likes it. I mean, the market's up across the board today, so the fact that Apple's up a little over 1% doesn't necessarily signal anything off of this. But Apple says they don't have any fees and no late charges and stuff, and I don't know how all that works, but I know when I go to my phone, it tells me what the balance is, and I can double click and look at my phone and pay it off pretty quickly, which I do. Generally twice a month I check things and pay them down to zero and kind of move on. So overall, I think it's probably a net gain for Apple, but I wouldn't expect it to specifically move the stock off of this news. Okay, shifting gears off to Lululemon. Why is Lululemon crushing us when we are in the middle of a multiple rate hikes and the potential mother of all recessions? Well, like I've mentioned several times, that this is kind of a rich session. What does that mean? I don't want to be insensitive here, but the rich are not necessarily feeling any recession or really any inflationary pressures, to any significant extent. I mean, of course they're feeling it. I mean, the prices are going up, but to an extent that it would affect somebody at a more middle demographic financially, it's really just not. If people want to pay $70 for yoga pants, and I don't even know if that's high or low, maybe it's 170. I don't know. But whatever it is, if people are willing to pay it, then good on them, I guess. And that's how the luxury retailers are probably going to do pretty well through all this. We don't know exactly what we have on our hands yet, as far as if there's going to be a recession, if it's going to be mild or hard or whatever it is. But again, the rich possibly will be able to skate through this and not be tremendously affected. So therefore, the luxury retailers, not only clothes but gear, watches, everything else could fare quite well through all of this if the rich don't stop spending. Okay. Not only did they beat, but they issued upbeat guidance for the new fiscal year. So that's kind of interesting because CEOs are notorious for being conservative, right? Because it's, their business mindset to make sure that they, give a solid projection, but don't overpromise and underdeliver. That's kind of the worst thing a CEO can do. But this allows, by saying that the really, upbeat guidance means things are going to even get better. That's pretty against the grain, if you will. Now would be the opportunity to kind of be a little more conservative, but they must feel so strongly about it they're willing to put it in writing, and of course will be judged by the market when next time they have earnings. So Lululemon, I mean, it's already it's up $43 a share, which sounds like a lot, but it's also a $360 stock, right? So it's up 13%. When you look at the 1 year, it's kind of going back to where it was before, if you will. So before we started this hot mess out of 2022, it was up there at around the $400 point, dropped all the way down to 250, bounced up to 400 again, back down to 300. Now we're up at 368. I do think this puts the floor under it, so I don't think it'll revisit 300 again. But I wouldn't expect it to necessarily scream higher from here. So this is one of these, if you had it in your portfolio, good on you. You took a little bit of risk, right? Luxury retailer going into a recession, or maybe you're just holding it for 20 years because you believe the brand. That's another valid strategy. But I would not hop in right here expecting it to just, wake up tomorrow and it's going to go up 15% a day, for the next week or two. It's just simply not, right? It's getting, the risk reward right now is unfortunately probably to the downside, right? Even though they just painted a really pretty picture. So either steer clear or swim at your own risk, if you will, if you're interested in Lululemon stock. All right, the last one. The question I keep getting asked is, hey, where's that form that tells me that I made my contributions? My tax person is asking for it. Well, first of all, there's lots of things to unpack in that statement. So I'm either folks are asking for things and using their advisor, their tax person is asking for it as an excuse. Okay. Or your tax person doesn't know what they're talking about, because your tax person does not need this form, right? And your tax person would know that this form comes out in the middle of May. You're like, Steve, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Well, this is an accounting form. This is a for information only form. This is to document what you contributed. For the one I have pictured here is the 2023 form. So this, I should have pulled up the 2022, would have been more sense. But the one you're going to get in May says 2022 on it, and it captures the entirety of the contributions you made from January 1st of 2022 all the way to April 15th of 2023, or whatever tax day is. I haven't seen if it's a weekend or not, but the full tax period of the 12 months of the calendar year plus the 3.5 months you've had to make those contributions. So in other words, they can't give you the form before the tax season is over, right? Because they don't know, because you could on the if they gave it to you mid-March, you could add more money in, and then they'd have to give it to you again. So they just wait until tax season is over, publish the thing in mid-May, and then you have it for your records. It is furnished to the IRS. So, whatever you said back in March when you filed your taxes that you made for contributions, of course, the IRS is going to pay you out, whatever you say, right? If you haven't figured that out yet. If you file a return that says, hey, you owe me $100,000, they'll send you a check. Okay. Now, you may have just changed your life, not in a good way. But they will basically honor your return on faith, right? Because otherwise everything would be delayed. But all of our returns go through an AI-based screener. AI-based might be given a little too much credit. It goes through an algorithm that kind of flags certain things. And one of them is, of course, contributions, because that's pretty easy. It's just like the IRS has a form that says you put in 6,000. You said you put in 5,800. Well, there's a mismatch there. So it'll kind of kick out and then send you basically a auto-generated type form mail in the letter saying, hey, you have a mismatch here and you need to clean it up, whether it's favorable or not to your situation. So that's kind of how that works. So this form 5498, you will not have it when you file, so you can stop asking for it. That sounded snarky, but it's not. It's just trying to explain it, that you won't have that until after you file, and then you will get it. And then once you get that in the mail in May, don't forget to go put it in your old, your tax file or folder or whatever you have that you already closed out and like locked away into the secret vault for the year, right? Because you don't want to look at it until next year. So anyhow, that's the 5498. There is a way to, if you got confused on, say you made a contribution in January of 23 and you're like confused whether that was, allocated towards your 2022 allotment or allocated towards 2023, look on your statement. If you find, if you want it changed, it's simply a phone call. You got to call the custodian, if you work, if I work for you, then call me and I'll call the custodian and get it all sorted out for you. But yeah, you can get it sorted out. They do not go back, even if you get something corrected, they do not go back and change, reissue statements. So if the statement is different from what you want and you correct it over the phone, you will not get a new statement. You just have to know that the situation has been corrected. So, all right, that's enough for today. Thanks again for all the questions. Keep reaching out through email and social media. And don't forget to like and subscribe. That's all we have for today. We'll be back at you tomorrow. Have a good one. Bye.